Hi everyone, welcome back to Stamp with Anna, and today I have another card made excuse me, using the suit and tie dies. And this one here is obviously some scrubs, and in the crazy times we're in, we're getting a lot of great treatment from our first responders who are in hospitals and doctors' offices. So this would be a perfect card to send along to any one of them as a thank you. And I consulted with my daughter, who's a nurse, and she helped me with my design. So let's get started, and I'll show you how we made this. Our card base is thick basic white, and it's 4 1/4 by 11 scored at 5.5. And our card front, which is going to end up being the scrubs, the scrub top is 4 1/4 by 5.5, so it fits perfectly on your card front. I will explain what else we use as we go along, because I honestly used a ton of product for this, and I hope it doesn't become too overwhelming. But the star of the show is this suit and tie dye. And it is in the current January to June mini catalog, and it's only available until the end of June. And it is part of a bundle, which is the Handsomely Suited stamp set, and it has ties, some Father's Day sayings, thank you, which would be appropriate for our scrub card, and some bows. It also has, obviously, this suit and tie dye set. And we're going to be using this piece here, which you can use to make suspenders, and there'll be a card up next week with that. And it has this pocket and this V, which is going to cut out the top of our scrubs. And it also has lots more. It has little fasteners for the suspenders, a tie, a set of 6 buttons, 2 bows, and this is a little piece that goes in the middle of the bow. This is a little hanky, and I used that on a card yesterday on a pair of jeans. And this here is a collar, and that'll be on a card next week. And then we also have this lapel for a suit or a sweater. So there's lots of potential, and you're only limited by your imagination. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to try to get all my die cutting done first. I'm going to bring up my Big Shot. I'm going to make sure I have this in view, because every time I go edit my videos, I find out my Big Shot is never in view. Okay, there it is. So I have my magnetic plate, and I have an acrylic plate, and now I have my Seafoam Spray Designer Series paper. And as a reminder, Seafoam Spray is one of the in colors that will be retiring at the end of this catalog. And this catalog is actually retiring at the beginning of May this year, not June. Stampin' Up! Has changed its calendar. So this Seaside Spray, which is perfect for scrubs, is only available until, I believe, May 3rd. So then we're going to bring in this die that comes from that set. Oh, and pardon all my ink. And we're going to cut out the top part of the collar line, the neckline of our scrubs. And when I put this in, I just like to bring in my ruler to double check that I have a straight positioning. So here is 0, so I have 2 1/4 on each side. That's right. And then on this side, oops, wrong way. On this side, I have 1 1/2, and on this side, I just have 1. So I'm going to scooch the top part over, leaving my bottom part exactly where it is. Here I have 1 1/4, and there I have 1 1/4. So I think I am good. All right. And if you're off by, 1/8 of an inch, that's not going to be a big deal. But if you are off by 1/2 an inch or so, that will be visible. Okay. So there's the first thing we're die cutting. And there you can see that is our neckline. The next thing we're going to die cut, also in this seaside foam is our pocket. And I have a little scrap that I had in my scrap stash. It was a circle. And this fits perfectly in there. And I'm going to die cut that. Okay. And there is our pocket, and I love the stitching around it. Then the last thing we're going to die cut out of the seafoam are these suspender. These are used to make suspenders, designed to make suspenders, but we're going to use it to make our neckline. So I'm going to, and you can see I'm not using a full 6-inch piece of paper. I only need a bit of it. So I'm going to run that through twice, and I'll show you what I mean when we get to that part of assembling the card. So there's one, and here is the other. And that's the last thing I need to die cut from my seafoam. And the last thing I'm going to die cut from that set of dies. Next thing I want to die cut is my stethoscope. And I have the layering ovals dies. And this die set has all these ovals. I'm using the largest and the third largest. It also comes with layering, coordinating scalloped ovals so that you can make nice layers, but we don't need that. So I'm going to use these, and I have just a scrap piece of black, basic black, and I don't need the whole thing, so I'm just going to fit as much as I can on this piece of black. And I'm going to layer the smaller piece equally around the larger piece, because that's what's going to make my little frame part. Okay, so now I'm going to run that through. And I have this, and you can see this is cut here. I don't need that, so that's fine. All right, and that's all I'm using with my layering ovals. Now I want to make the top, the neckline of my t-shirt. And for that I have a scrap of basic white. And to make that, I'm going to use the layering shapes framelits. And here I have layering circles, so I'm using the two smallest. I have, stitched circles, stitched squares, and stitched ovals. Like I said, I'm just using the two smallest circles. And I'm going to run that through. Okay. And here I have the neckline to my t-shirt. All right. And the last thing I'm going to die cut is the stethoscope here, the earpiece part of the stethoscope. And for that, I have a strip of silver foil, and in the Be Mine framelit set, which coordinates with the Meant to Be stamp set, this has tons of hearts. You can see there's scallop hearts, stitched hearts, and then we have regular hearts, and then intricate hearts and roses. We just have so much that goes along with that set. So I'm going to, again, do the same thing. I just need to make a frame. So I'm going to put the smaller heart inside the larger heart, kind of set them up so that they are even, and then run that through. Now all of my die cutting is done. There are some, and by the way, you end up with this great little heart in the middle, but we're not using it, but go ahead and save that because you will use it for something, I'm sure. And here is the piece we are going to use. All of the other bits and pieces that I've used, I did with punches, and I'll punch those along as we get to that part of the project. Okay, so here are all our die cut pieces. The first thing I need to do, here's my sample, is I need to make my neck, the trim on my neckline. And I'm going to use these long pieces here. Now, my goal is to have this come down a little bit, but I want this to be even. So what I'm going to do is I'm not going to attach this to my card yet because I want to be able to trim it where I see where I want it trimmed. So I'm going to just place this, okay? I'm going to place this where I think I want it. And I want these two at some point to intersect. So I have to play with them so that they will intersect correctly. Okay, so see that intersection right there, corner to corner? That's what I'm looking for. So now I'm going to lift this top one. So I'm going to use the multi-purpose glue, and I'm going to put just a tiny bit on this bottom one right here. Okay, and now I'm going to, I hope I didn't lose my placement. I'm going to place that back down there. Okay, so now I have that lined up along the outside of my scrubs, but I also have it intersected right in that corner. So now that this is attached, I'm going to turn it over and I'm going to cut a straight line because that was my goal. My goal was to have, see this, how this is straight? That's what I wanted. So now that I have it all lined up, now I can attach it. I just want to straighten that out just a tiny bit more. All right, so again, I'm going to bring in a silicone pad because I'm going to make a mess. As you can see, my workspace is a disaster. I should probably clean that up. I'm going to add some liquid glue. And then I'm going to place this right where I had it. And the liquid glue, I think, is the best way to go because you do have some time to push it around so you get it exactly where you want it to go. All right, there's that. Okay, now I'm going to turn this over and I'm going to cut off these pieces that are just a tad bit too long. Okay, there we go. Now that is, you can see, our basic scrub. So now this white piece right here on my cardstock is going to be my t-shirt. And I want this little circle frame that we made to be the top of his t-shirt. So that's going to go like that. So I'm going to try to bring this up so that it's probably about a half. I do want these little points, the point of my scrub, to touch the point of my t-shirt. Okay, so now that's how it's going to go. I'm not going to attach it just yet. I have to make my skin. And I'm going to use Petal Pink. And the inside of this circle, it is 1.5 inches. So I have my 1.5 inch circle punch. Now I know Stampin' Up! Discontinued a lot of their circle punches. You could use the dies if you have a die, but sometimes the circle is just easier. So what I'm going to do is place this exactly where I want it. And you can see this fits right, don't worry about the top, this fits right in there because this is 1.25 and this is 1.25. So I'm going to put this right here. I'm going to hold it with my finger and I'm going to put in some liquid glue and I'm going to place my neck right there. And it fits perfectly within, whoops, within that little space. Okay. Now, knowing that that's where my neck fits, I'm going to lift my t-shirt collar. And I'm going to put a little bit of liquid glue around there. And now I'm going to secure this. And again, it's going to fit perfectly because I measured it. There's that. And it fits nested. So you don't, the reason I didn't layer upon layer upon layer, because you don't want that getting layered too high. You want to keep that as flat as possible so that you don't have a bulky card. Now we're going to attach our scrub top to the card. So with that, I'm going to just use my Stampin' Seal. You can use your liquid glue if you'd like. I'm going to use you know what, I think I will use my liquid glue. So I'm going to put some at the top here, along the edges. Okay, and I think I have enough. Now I'm going to turn this over. And again, this is going to line up right with the corners of my card base. And if something doesn't line up, I can always come back in and trim it out. All right, now I'm going to turn this over. And I'm going to cut these pieces off. I cut off his neck. And there we have a nice neckline with a stitched t-shirt. Doesn't that look realistic? Great. Now the next thing we're going to put on is our pocket. And for that I'm going to use some Stampin' Dimensionals because I want it to be elevated. And I'll show you a couple things that you can do with that when it's elevated. I'm going to put one in each of the 4 corners and then one right in the middle. So it's a lot of dimensionals. Take my backings off. And I'm going to place it low on my scrub right there. Okay. Now we have to start assembling the stethoscope. And that actually is not as hard as it looks. So here we have that oval frame that we made. And I'm just going to cut this in half. I'm going to use one on one side and one on the other side. So I want this to kind of look like it's coming from around the neck. So it's going to go just like that. So I'm going to put a little bit of glue on that, on this side right here. And I'm going to do the same with this side. I want this to go right about there. Okay. I'm going to put a little bit of liquid glue on that. And I'm going to make that go round right there. And press. And now, as I did before, I'm going to turn my card over and trim the excess stethoscope piece. All right, there's that. Now this piece here on the stethoscope, I have that scrap piece of gold foil and a scrap piece of white. And I used, again, punches. I used a 1-inch punch, and that's what I'm going to cut the back part of my stethoscope out. Okay, and then I'm going to use the 3/4 inch punch, and I'm going to punch that out in basic white. And I'm going to add a little bit of liquid glue. Center that right there. Now I want this to pop up, so I'm going to use, excuse me, a Stampin' Dimensional. So I'm going to put it right in the middle. And then I'm going to position that so that it looks like this piece, this black piece here is in the middle. All right. Then I have a scrap of real red, and I have this old tiny heart punch. And I think a lot of our new die sets have little punches with, little dies that are shaped like hearts. It's something easy enough that you could get. Okay, and there's that. I want that little heart there. Now we have to do our stethoscope. So here is that heart frame, okay? So I'm going to cut right down the center of that frame, right like that, okay? And for this, I'm going to use little mini dimensionals. I'm going to put one down on the bottom loop part of each of the heart sides. And then I want the other side of it raised too. I want these sides here a little raised. So here I have the end of the edges of my Stampin' Dimensional sheet. I'm going to cut a tiny little strip, and I'm going to put that one on each side here, right like that. It's a good way to use every bit of your Stampin' Dimensionals. This one looks like it might be a tiny bit too wide. I'm going to give it a little snip. And I'm going to put that right here. All right, now I'm going to peel these off. And I'm going to put one here. And one here on the other side. Now I want to leave a little bit of space in between because I have to put my little ear pieces there. Okay, so there's that. Now from that silver paper, I die cut a 1/2 inch circle, and I'm going to cut this. Excuse me, I punched a 1/2 inch circle. And I die cut, I'm going to slice that right in half. And this is going to go one on either side right here. Okay, so I'm going to put a little bit of liquid glue. You know, sometimes it's so hard to work with these tiny little pieces. And I'm going to put that right there. I'm going to try to line up these two little points right there. And that makes our little earpiece that the nurse or doctor puts in their ear. Okay, just move that around until you get the look that you want. And then I'm going to do the same with the other piece. Oops, my fingers are so sticky from the glue. It's sticking to my hand better than it's sticking to my project. Okay, so there's that. Now we have this little piece there that doesn't look too attractive, right? So with my 1/2 inch punch, I'm going to pop that out. I'm going to put a little bit of a liquid glue right there, and I'm going to drop that right on the inside, and that is going to hide my sliced heart. And there we go. Now this stamp set, the well-suited stamp set, does have a stamp that says thank you on it. And I think that could be stamped right here on the pocket, or it could be stamped on the inside. Either way, I think that's a great sentiment to go along with this card. So I hope you enjoyed this project. Please contact me through my blog, www.stampwithanna.blogspot.com. And if you enjoyed this project, I would love it if you would give me a thumbs up and if you would subscribe to my YouTube channel. And don't forget, this Seaside Spray is only available until like May 2nd. And these dies are in the current catalog that's only good until the end of May. It's the January to June stamp, January to June catalog. I hope you enjoy this project, and I'll catch you back here another day. Thank you.